Festival em Nashville.
This is Pedro. Pedro was a short, skinny guy I went to primary school with. He was constantly bullied by the older kids. They would play a game with him always, where they would lay down 2 coins, 50 escudos and 100 escudos. And they would ask Pedro to choose the most valuable one. Pedro would always pick the 50, the bigger coin in size, but obviously weaker in value. And the kids would laugh at him and make fun of his choice, as Pedro would timidly hold on to the 50 and see them walk out. After a few times witnessing this, I went up to Pedro and I told him, hey, listen, 50 escudos is less valuable than 100 escudos. I urged him to pick the 100 next time and stop the humiliation. Pedro, surprised, he turned to me and he said, yes, I know. But how many times would they come back to me if I had chosen the 100? Today, I want to talk to you about constraints, about why it's important to turn your limitations into advantages and make them your allies. I'd like to tell you about the beauty of tight briefings and the vital role constraints play in what we produce creatively. But I know what you're thinking, I know. Constraints have a bad reputation, as if they were some kind of obstacle that forbids us to do what we want to do. But today, I want you to look beyond the obvious and realize it's those exact limitations that makes us push further and really be inventive. And from the moment we realize that thought, we'll be able to see opportunities rather than difficulties. Everyone in this audience is tired of hearing, think outside the box. This is bullshit, guys. The box is the limit, not the sky. The box is there for a reason. And the real challenge of creativity is to think inside of it. You see, researchers found that whenever you erected a fence on a playground, children would use more of the space than without it. With a fence, children will run up and down, left and right to the edges. Without the fence, children would tend to stick to the middle, close to each other, where it feels safe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what happens in the creative process. The more freedom you have, the more difficult your creative journey will be. The more scared you will be, and when we're scared, we make safe choices. So we need to embrace restrictions. They give us the urge to move, the freedom to explore, and the freedom to push the boundaries. Now, my fascination with constraints was born early, with my grandparents. They were the most sarcastic people I've ever met. And also, the best storytellers I've known. Their stories were full of metaphors, irony, analogies. They would talk around the subject, indirectly hinting to what they wanted to communicate, through a mix of wise words, sayings, but in the end, you would always get what they wanted you to get. And that's how their communication worked. You see, they lived in a country where they couldn't really speak their mind freely, a sort of dictatorship that didn't really like thoughts against it. I'm talking about Portugal in the 30s, a place where sometimes you had to be very crafty with words to get your points across without being too obvious. And although these were dark times for freedom of speech and thought, these limitations made the way my grandparents communicated extremely artful and creative, beautiful and effective, because they had to find their own unique way inside of the box they lived in. But I continue observing constraints all around me, and growing up, I looked at Mick Jagger with interest. His flamboyant dance moves, were actually born out of restrictions. Because when the Rolling Stones first started playing gigs in the 70s, they were hitting very small venues. And by the time the equipment was all set up on stage, Mr. Jagger had only the size of a table to perform. Instead of being static, he learned to work that space. In a combination of desire and restriction, created what we now know as moves like Jagger. So Mr. Jagger decided to dance inside of the tiny box he was in. And this was the result. But Google's iconic page, for example, was also born out of limitations. Its founder, Larry Page, didn't have the skills to design nor the money to hire someone to do it for him. So instead, he took the matter into his own hands. And he created a page that consisted only of a logo and a search box. And while others, the competitors, Alta Vista, Yahoo, had pages cluttered with images, banners, animations, text, Google's simplicity stood out because it focused on what really mattered for the user. So that was key for Google's success. And we could say that Larry Page searched and found the answer inside the box. So today, I guess my point is that for creativity to work, it has to be chained, limited, restricted. Constraints push our creative minds to go beyond what we think is possible. When creativity runs wild, that's when chaos happens. Or as David Ogilvy likes to put it, give me the freedom of a tight briefing. Let the boundaries of your briefing be the fuel to your inventiveness. So embrace the rules, the budget you're on, your clients and their tough demands. Creativity is not easy, but when you have boundaries, it becomes easier. Restrictions are really part of the creation game, guys. And without them, we're lost. So if you don't have them, create them. Build your own fences. Choose a strange word to use in every sentence. Think of a zero-budget campaign. Design a logo in an hour. Ditch your digital camera and choose an analog one for your next holiday, because you will only have 36 opportunities to capture the world around you. Or try to write a story of 6 words. That's more powerful than one of 6,000. But wait a minute. Wait. You guys are already doing this. I'm already doing this. We're doing this every day, using constraints to express ourselves. Look at Twitter, for example, 140 characters. Snapchat, 10 seconds. Think about it. By restricting your creative space, you're actually setting it free. So, I would say embrace the limitations as Google did. Dance like Mick Jagger. Play like children within the fence. Learn to work the box you're in and then go crazy thinking inside of it. Choose the 50 escudos coin. Turn your limitations into advantages, as Pedro did. Now, I know thinking inside the box is not easy. It's a journey of discovery, full of ups and downs, rights and wrongs. But in the end, the fight to work within constraints will take us through paths that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And it's okay to be adrift while finding your way between the turbulent boundaries of a box. But it is in that turbulence, guys, it is in that turbulence that we can rise above and we can all become heroes. Thank you.